it's hard to see how Grok will not fall into the same trap that it's already fallen into before. It is unclear where it's going to get its information from, whether it was just transpose things that Grok has learned separately and just metamorphosize those into entries, and also who it is for exactly, because I think, people who might consider Wikipedia biased would just not use Wikipedia and they would probably use something else. I don't necessarily think that that it's for anyone that, I don't know, that would plausibly think, Wikipedia needs saving. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think it's for a completely different, separate group of people that perhaps believe that they can use Grok in a different way. But unless it's tested, I just don't see why you would use that as your source of information.
Hello and welcome to the Tech Report. I'm Louis Sykes. Joining us today is Natasha Banal, Senior Business Editor at Wired. Natasha, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Louis.
Well, Natasha, Elon Musk says he's about 2 weeks away from releasing the first usable competitor to Wikipedia that he's designing, called Grokipedia. We'll come on to Grok's previous controversies, I'm sure, but why does Wikipedia need AI? And do you think they're going to be worried about this potential competitor?
So it's interesting because Elon Musk has obviously ideated this himself. This came out of a conversation that he had with David Sachs, the AI czar, on the All In podcast. And he basically just said that Grok scrapes a load of different information sources, and one of them is Wikipedia. And Sachs suggested that Wikipedia was in his opinion, populated by the opinions of a hyper-partisan group of activists who change information willy-nilly, and that Grok should do a version, and Musk said, I'll talk to people about it. So I guess this version is Grok's version of what the encyclopedia of the internet should look like. And what that will look like, I don't know. I mean, I am interested in figuring out if they do meet the 2-week deadline, because obviously Elon Musk has been famous for setting deadlines that he then doesn't meet. But if it does turn out to be the way we have seen Grok perform in the past, it will be interesting. I imagine it will be quite skewed towards sort of right, the further right / conservative news sources. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Grok thinks the world encyclopedia is, I guess.
I was going to say, how big of a challenge is it then, do you think? As you say, 2 weeks seems quite a short amount of time, because while Wikipedia is a relatively simple looking format, presumably the amount of information that's on there and the breadth of the stuff it covers is quite tricky to kind of put together in such a short period of time.
It's absolutely huge. And you've got to remember that Wikipedia is something that has been constructed mainly through volunteers and people that are sort of accredited as contributors to it. And they update things all the time. If you look at any given entry in Wikipedia, you'll see it's been updated maybe hundreds of times, of people who are whether historians or aficionados or people who are interested in the topic. When news occurs and people die, their Wikipedia pages are updated incredibly quickly. And I guess my question is whether Grok is able to replicate that without human beings. I mean, Wikipedia, as far as I know, hasn't responded to this this sort of throwing down the gauntlet of Grok, but it does struggle itself with funding, which is why you will see on its site that's asking for donations. So it is not an insignificant operation. It's a huge effort to update and keep updated all these millions of pages. And there has been a lot of controversy around in the past around how these pages are managed and how they're updated. And there have been many articles written about that, how people can change their own Wikipedia pages, or like politicians have had their allies or aides change photographs on Wikipedia to make themselves look better, or things that they've said. So trying to transform history. And I guess Grok will have to use all the information from the internet that it's able to gather through open source to replicate that without going wrong. And I suppose Wikipedia has years and years of experience doing it, whereas Grok will have 2 weeks if they started straight away. So it's difficult to see how that will go without a hitch, but we'll see.
Musk has claimed that the new competitor Wikipedia could solve what he calls bias in Wikipedia, but should a language model that once declared itself Mecha Hitler really be trusted as a reliable source of information?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because it is easy to say that any kind of platform is biased, and Grok itself, as you say, was completely biased when its algorithm was tweaked in order for it to disregard what it considered to be liberal news outlets. So it's interesting, right? I suppose it's like that old saying, like everyone has their own truth, right? And in every situation, there's a different perspective, and I guess this will be Grok's, right? Will it be something that is inherently unbiased? I don't think anything can be truly unbiased. I mean, I know that in news organizations, journalists try their best to just represent facts, but obviously it is very difficult to do that in a massive, large scale at speed. And so it's hard to see how Grok will not fall into the same trap that it's already fallen into before. It is unclear where it's going to get its information from, whether it was just transpose things that Grok has learned separately and just metamorphosize those into entries, and also who it is for exactly. Because I think, people who might consider Wikipedia biased would just not use Wikipedia and they would probably use something else. I don't necessarily think that that it's for anyone that I don't know, that would plausibly think, Wikipedia needs saving. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think it's for a completely different, separate group of people that perhaps believe that they can use Grok in a different way. But and unless it's tested, I just don't see why you would use that as your source of information. And this is another thing: Wikipedia, although it's a great source of like base level information, it isn't a credible source of data. You have to find that elsewhere. So I don't really know why he's holding Wikipedia to that level anyway, when it's very clear that these entries are, bits of information that are useful to on the way to research something, but they're certainly not the be all end all. And I don't understand why he's necessarily phrasing Grok as being that when Wikipedia isn't that. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, Elon Musk's AI project is not the only one facing criticism this week. Sam Altman's new TikTok-styled Sora 2 app is facing a continued backlash for seemingly cashing in on those kind of mass-produced AI videos that we've seen on a lot of other platforms. Is this just a cash grab, or is there something else going on here?
Um, hard to say because I agree in the sense that when you look at Sora and you use it to create things, it's very different from the other AI video apps that have been created before, which are more geared towards the sort of Hollywood experience. They're more geared towards sort of high level cinematographic movie productions. And you can see that there is a purpose there, right? They want to plug into that industry and they want to serve as an alternative to that footage that you might have to create in real life or create using animations. With this, it's sort of like something that you would use with your friends, right? And so it's not entirely clear to the user perhaps what entirely it is for, right? The utility of it isn't apparent, and that's been the main accusation against the company has been exactly that they're basically creating this sort of silly little tool that people can use to have a bit of fun with their friends and input their faces forevermore into the system to generate moving a few seconds long videos of themselves, and that it's using up energy and it's using up resources to do that. And in the reporting that I've seen on that matter, Sam Altman has addressed that and said, look, this is a fair thing. Reportedly, he said that this is something that he needs to be able to justify investing in some of the higher level AI to reach that goal of artificial general intelligence, which is when AI will reach human level of intelligence. Whether that is true, I don't entirely know. I think like there will be useful things that probably come out of Sora. I don't know what those things are yet. I can see a lot of potential downsides. At Wired, we've seen sort of many different bits of footage that have been used of people who have been who are deceased, who are famous people, just suddenly being reanimated. It was Robin Williams' daughter who was saying, "Please, can you stop sending me videos of my dad?" You can see how this can be a tremendously worrying thing. And also, we've seen the copyright side of things, where you have people whose images are protected and copyrighted being used, or animated characters who are protected and copyrighted, whose images are being used on the platform. And it feels like OpenAI is very much learning as it goes. So the copyright side of things was addressed certainly last week, when it was still not available in the UK. And it feels like these sort of things will be sort of ironed out. But I hate to say this. I mean, I hate to play devil's advocate here, but you could argue about Sora the same about TikTok or about any of the other platforms that we use for social media. Like, what are they for? Why are they useful? And sometimes having fun and enjoying yourself on the internet is a sufficient reason for companies to try to cash in on that. And this is a way of doing that. It's a way of engaging with people and getting data, especially training data, and getting people to use their products and opening it up even wider, for them to have more access to the audience. And that sometimes is reason enough. We don't need to have something that's highbrow all the time from OpenAI. And this certainly doesn't appear to be that.
And you mentioned the argument Sam Altman made about needing to find ways of generating revenue. What does that say about the model that ChatGPT operates under? I mean, they're supposedly bringing in around $13 million in revenue, but they don't expect to be in profit for years yet. Should we maybe expect more of these kind of products that are going to be needed to almost keep the company liquid, keep revenue coming in?
It is interesting, isn't it? Because OpenAI's valuation has massively soared up. The company's doing very well in the face of it. Huge amount of interests in its growth, but it's a balancing act, as you say. Like, you've got a situation where you have huge amount of expectation from investors, and you've got a free product, which is, you can use ChatGPT without paying. There is a level of non-payment, which is useful for the company because, again, it generates that training data and that sort of branding. The conversions, I'm not clear on what the conversions are, the latest figures on like the paid for, like business contracts for GPT-5, for example, or for the individual side of things. So it could be that they're generating a chunk of cash off of that. But I suppose ultimately, Sora, again, is not necessarily a cash cow. So I wouldn't expect it to plug any revenue gaps that OpenAI might have available. I think it's difficult to see how it would do that, to be honest. I know that's not exactly sort of answering the question, but I'm not clear on how Sora could help OpenAI become more profitable than it is already.
And on the issue of money in the economy around the AI industry, there are wider concerns, aren't there? I mean, just today, the Bank of England's Financial Policy Committee is warning of the threat of an AI bubble bursting. How worried should we be about the whole industry becoming a sort of new dot-com boom and crash?
Um, it's hard, right? Because if you and I've spoken about the AI bubble quite a lot in the past few weeks over here, and I think it's interesting because the valuations just keep on going up and up and up, right? So you don't have a situation where there's any like huge level of shorting or people that are pulling out, or investors who are disgruntled. So we still, if it is a bubble, we're still in the sort of honeymoon phase of it, where people are very much willing to put money behind it. I mean, you've got huge amounts of like rip roaring valuations that are just speeding ahead this year. And what the Bank of England is saying is basically like, hey, this is all really well and good if things are going well, but also we're kind of concerned about what will happen should the market sour. And it is the Bank of England's job to do that, to be like, excuse me, guys, what happens if this doesn't take off as much as you expect it to? And this is just the sort of the first rumblings, I guess, of concern that maybe these businesses are going to struggle to meet the expectations of the market. It was also questioning like the Fed and like what exactly this might mean for rates in the US and all that sort of stuff, which is a whole other kettle of fish. But I guess for me, the big question is, when the Bank of England says these sorts of things, what kind of reassurances could it possibly have in a market that's burgeoning? Because this is not the same as a commodities or even an FMCG kind of scenario where you can map it in a way that's more traditional. This is an entirely new market, and I guess comparing it to the dot-com bubble, I mean, is that helpful even? Because the dot com bubble, I mean, yes, it was a bubble, and there were things that happened as a result of that, but also it's not like it completely collapsed the tech industry forever. It's not like it dissuaded people from investing in the future. So it is difficult to kind of see how this is, I suppose, helpful at this point, aside from being like, guys, this might not be a great idea. But I guess that it points to something bigger, right? We've spoken about this before, which is about the sort of cyclical and sort of almost uh, intertwined nature of AI at the moment. You have all these businesses that are investing together into each other, into other ventures, and it is kind of building itself up like a house of cards, right? Where you've got a situation where if one crumbles, there's a knock-on effect for them all. And I think that's what the Bank of England is warning about. They're saying if the going's good, that's great, but we are worried about this industry. We're worried about this industry because it has all these intrinsic links to each other. All of these companies have ties, and also, let us not forget, it has ties to Donald Trump's presidency and his administration pushing the AI industry forward and taking away all the barriers when it comes to regulation. So they're saying if any of these things change, it could be a problem.
Well, maybe too early to spell the doom of the AI industry yet, then, Natasha. But we'll find out from you in the future, I'm sure. Natasha Banal, senior business editor at Wired. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Tech Report.
Thank you.